Could you answer this question?
Yes.
All right, you had the revival with Reagan to a limited degree. How can we have any sense of depth to the kind of revival we see building now, so that these kinds of things that this dear lady here has just mentioned concerning the environment, and you've mentioned that, but because it's so easy for revivals to come and then it peters out so quick, because when you don't have a job, you kind of look introspectively,
Right.
and outside too.
I think that it's continued, we have to just continue pushing the envelope and educating ourselves. And if that means that as groups, Tea Party groups or what have you, we have our own community teach-ins. Look, the left didn't get to where they are today just by sitting back. They worked it. You know, they have teach-ins, they have events that they invite people to and they indoctrinate them. We have to do teach-ins as well. If we don't like the fact that our public schools aren't teaching about the founders and the Constitution, then we have to take it into our own hands and say, okay, you know, we know retired school teachers that are conservatives, we have knowledge ourselves, we're going to offer free seminars. It's hard work, but freedom is not free. We have to do it.
I think too with Ronald, I'll shut up, I swear, I see that hand. With Ronald Reagan, Lou, you know, I hope you'll agree, he had a foundational belief from which he built. That's how he was such a great leader. If our leaders are just doing this because the camera's going to be on them, or it's an opportunity for them to get elected, then they don't own it. Right. Reagan owned it. Win or lose, he knew what he believed in to his core. And one of the things that one of my favorite Christian apologists used to say is, know the truth so you recognize a lie when you see one. And if we don't own the truth, liberty, justice, freedom, if we don't own it, we can't debate it, we can't argue it, we can't defend it. And so I think if we're going to have another revolution, it's going to be that Tea Party kind of thing where from their gut they just started yelling, you know? And we need leaders who passionately believe and own the truths about liberty and freedom.
You know, real quick, this morning at the breakfast, Congressman Issa mentioned the fact that we have to win every battle, the left only has to win one. And that's like now and then they have to do it. And it's sort of an odd irony of the way it goes, because you believe in freedom and people going about doing the things they do, so you go about your lives and enjoy the freedom, the 20 years that Andrew talks about. But the left is at work every single day, and government grows every single day.
Yeah.
And Jefferson talked about the natural dynamic is for liberty to yield and government to grow. Yet we cannot sit back, because we have to win these fights every single day, especially they are accelerating. You need to remember that the federal government all the way through to 1965 was only $130 billion. And it's now $4 trillion, and the growth is sort of that exponential thing, because you're building on such a massive base. Let's go in the back, right there. Yeah.
I want to touch a little bit on what the gentleman said about our schools, because we're trying to slay these progressive giants when they come to fruition. We've got to start way back where they're beginning to educate our kids. We've got to get involved in our PTOs and our PTAs and our school boards, because the schools of journalism are turning out progressives, the colleges are turning out progressives, and if we don't take a hold of that, we're going to have this problem for generations.
I've created big Hollywood, big government, big journalism. One of the next ones that we're going to create, and I'm not saying it to indulge you, but I think it's going to be the biggest one when we get going, because there's just so much there, is big education.
Yes.
And I'm not happy. I've got skin in the game. I've got 4 kids, 3, 5, 8, and 10. The first day of school, and I knew I was going to have to pick and choose my battles. My wife just said, Andrew, we're sending our first kid to school. Please don't get into war on day one. But yeah, public school in West LA. My son, this is absolutely true. Day one, he comes home on his first day from school crying. I said, what happened? He goes, I didn't get a sticker on my hand. Why? Because you put a plastic baggie in my lunch and I didn't get the sticker because it's going to kill the dolphins. That was on day one of kindergarten.
That's a big battle.
Okay? Okay, so can I get ethereal here? Because I'm really angry about this, and this ties to education. I graduated from university with an American Studies degree, and all I learned was in hindsight when I deconstructed my wasted 4 years of education. I didn't learn about the Founding Fathers. I learned about in essence, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but please go to Google and learn about this, because we've heard a lot about Saul Alinsky. This is a guy that in the 60s was a community organizer who pretty much came up with a game plan of the politics of personal destruction, and it's relentless. And once you realize that's all the left has is the destroying of the individual, not just to destroy Bush or Palin, but to send a message to anyone else who holds Bush or Palin's point of view that you're going to get the same treatment, and it intimidates good and decent people from entering into the public sphere because they know that they're next. And so Alinsky, we're using the tactics back on them, but where did Alinsky come from? Where did this socialist, social engineering mindset happen? How did America, which was resistant to the arguments of economic Marxism, how did we, over a generation or so, a little bit over a generation, how did we start to fall when we had stood so strongly against it? And I came across the answer by mistake, and I'm writing a book on it. I'm pre-selling it. It's not even up at Amazon yet. I'm telling you, you're not going to believe the quote I'm about to give you. It's from the New York Times. Every now and then they tell the truth. Alinsky is the street level form of warfare that anybody could read. If you read Rules for Radicals, it's an incredibly exciting, compelling book. It's really well written. Unlike at the higher end, that's street level. At the very high end, the crap I was learning in American studies, Herbert Marcuse, Theodore Adorno, Horkheimer, Gramsci, just crap that I swear I thought I was an idiot because I didn't understand what they were talking about. But I vaguely got it, but I didn't totally get it. When I went back to try and figure out what it was, and why I had graduated with zero skills, and I was a navel-gazing 20-something, following Kurt Cobain. Like how come Time Magazine told me that this anti-hero is somebody that I should be looking up to? And so I figured out that it was the Frankfurt School. How did the Frankfurt School come to be, and why am I taking this time here to tell you about the Frankfurt School? And it's because it ties to California. You're not going to believe this. I'm going to read you a paragraph from the New York Times, and it's just about a podcast that the BBC did on this obscure entity called the Frankfurt School. The Frankfurt School of philosophers emigrated from Nazi Germany and became dyspeptic critics of American culture. Several landed in Southern California, where they were disturbed by the consumer culture and the gospel of relentless cheeriness. Depressive by nature, they focused on the disappointments and venality that surrounded them and how unnecessary it all was. It could be paradise, Theodore Adorno complained, but it was only California. So America opens its arms to people who are fleeing Nazi Germany. They come to California in the 1940s. They settle, I kid you not, in a place called Villa Aurora in the Pacific Palisades. They called it a castle by the sea. And these depressive writers who were Marxists couldn't write because all of their writing was, the depression. Everything was born upon existentialism and why are we here? And they come to America and people are blissful. And it works. And they're not killing each other. And these people said, well, we got to change that. And that's what they did. And what they did was they realized, the American people are not buying the Marxist argument, even though every other country around the world is, because our founding documents granted everybody the right to become whatever they wanted. People said, no, I'm not buying this crap. What happened is they were social scientists that said, here's how we do it. We translate economic Marxism into cultural Marxism. What they did is they fused Marxist theory with Nietzsche and Freud. And what we got in the class struggle wasn't the haves and the have-nots. They split people and divided them by race. They divided them by sexual orientation, and they pitted them against one another. And they socially engineered us against one another. And so they took us from e pluribus unum to multiculturalism.